Hey everyone, on Friday in the NFL, we have the Minnesota Vikings against the Los Angeles Chargers. In this video, I'm going to preview the game, similar to what I did last week for the Tuesday games and last Friday's games. Share with you who I think is going to win, why I think they're going to win, where the edges and good matchups are for each team that you can not only target with your money line and handicap and total bets, but also for player props, which are a big part of my NFL betting strategy. Last week, we ended up going 10-2 overall, just missed out on making it a perfect 12-0 round, but the last few weeks have really picked up strongly in the NFL, similar to last season. Across the last 2 years, we're winning over 63% of our NFL bets at about $1.75 to $1.80 average odds per game. So firstly, looking at this game, Minnesota against the Chargers. LA are $1.54 favorites as the home side. They're laying minus 3.5 points, but that is juiced to the plus 3.5 on Minnesota, as you'd expect with it being right on a key number, and the total is 44.5. Minnesota are currently 3-3 on the season. They sit last in the NFC North, but not all that far behind, like Green Bay, Detroit, Chicago. They've gone win-loss, win-loss, win-loss on the season, so have struggled to string together any form. Last week, losing at home to Philadelphia. They are 2 wins off the division lead, but it's like a tough division there with Green Bay and Detroit in there. Plus, the Chicago Bears are definitely playing better this season. They do have a road divisional game next week against Detroit. That's the only thing that worries me a little bit here for Minnesota, but it's not a home divisional game, which I think there's a little bit more emphasis on than an away divisional game. This will be their second official away game of the season. The only other official away game was back in week 1 against Chicago. They did have the trip to Ireland and London across weeks 4 and 5, and then the bye in week 6. So they're effectively 2 wins, 1 loss in away or neutral venue games so far this season. Carson Wentz will start as the Minnesota quarterback. JJ McCarthy is listed as questionable, but Kevin O'Connell has said that Carson Wentz will start on the short week. McCarthy probably comes back in next week against Detroit, unless Carson Wentz has a huge game. The other thing for Minnesota is their only active running back that's not listed as questionable or inactive is Jordan Mason. So I'd expect him to get the vast majority of carries this week, 2 of them on the injury reserve, and then the other is listed as questionable, but expect Mason to do the majority of the work for Minnesota in the run game. Then for the Chargers, they are 4-3 on the season. They started the season with 3 straight wins, but have since lost 3 of their last 4 games. The only win during this last month was against Miami, and they only won that game by 2 points. This is a back-to-back home situation for them, which is really good. They lost last week here against Indiana by 14 points. They've conceded 27 or more points in 3 consecutive games, and prior to that, in their first 4 games, we're only conceding 21 or less in every one of those 4 games. So there's a bit of a concern there defensively for the Chargers. They're currently tied with Kansas City in the middle of this AFC West division, 1 game behind Denver, and then Las Vegas pretty much out of the running now with this division. But obviously important for the Chargers to kind of stay in touch. Kansas City are going to keep on improving up. Denver's having a good year and are always hard to beat at home as well, and produce that huge comeback to beat the Giants last week after being well and truly down in that game and scoring all 33 of their points in the final quarter. But this game isn't about Denver. The main injury concern for the Chargers is the running back position. Arnie Vidal is the only available running back for LA. He had a good game against Miami a couple of weeks ago with 124 yards on 18 carries with a 6.9 average yards per carry, but struggled against Indiana with just 20 yards on 9 carries last week, giving a 2.2 average. They also have injuries in the offensive line, which further expands like the potential of issues in the run game for them. So that's the main concern there for the Chargers. Bringing up the NFL bet finders, which you can use to analyze and compare the matches. Going through for Minnesota, I think they're a really good underdog in this game at the plus 3.5, or you could even buy them out to the plus 7.5. The Chargers, they've been struggling defensively. Their numbers aren't great overall. As I mentioned, they've conceded 27 plus in 3 straight games. Not that like Minnesota are a big scoring team. It's like possible for them. They have like the weapons to do it. It's just a matter of it clicking. But yeah, they're very solid. And Carson Wentz, he's susceptible to making mistakes, but he can definitely throw the ball and make the completions. And he has a really good receiver group with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Josh Naylor, and TJ Hawkinson, who are all healthy right now. So good receiving core for him to target. Justin Jefferson, the main one of those receivers, getting nearly a third of all targets for Minnesota this season. And he's had 10 or more targets in the last 3 games. Do expect Minnesota to be able to throw the ball fairly well, even though the Chargers pass defense puts up fairly good numbers. They don't generate a lot of pressure on the quarterback in relation. So I think that's going to give Carson Wentz time to hit the targets, and they should be able to pass the ball well enough to be competitive here. Then they have Jordan Mason in the backfield, who should continue his good form, considering the Chargers' rush defense is really, really poor. Jordan Mason has had 52 or more yards in 5 of 6 games this season. He's averaging 4.5 yards per carry. Expect him to be around that mark again, with Aaron Jones still out of the side, him getting the majority of the carries. The Chargers defensively ranked 28th in opponent yards per attempt on the rush game, and also 27th in opponent EPA per rush this season. Like, Minnesota on paper look to have the more balanced offense here, and they're underdogs even though they are on the road, but they have a good passing game with good receivers, and they should be able to get the run game going here. So I think that's going to make them very, very hard to beat. Defensively, they're also pretty strong. They rank top 10 in most categories overall. For the most part, teams have moved the ball well against them along the ground, particularly getting yards up the field towards the red zone. It's been the ground game that's beaten Minnesota. I can't see that being the case. I really doubt the Chargers are going to be able to do that this week with their injuries to the running back. Can't see Vidal being able to do that. A lot of that good yardage up the field on the ground was with Marion Hampton or Najee Harris. So without them, similar to last week, I think it's going to be really tough here for the Chargers. And Justin Herbert's going to have just as big of a game as he did last week against Indianapolis, and they still weren't able to get the win there. They had one of the strongest run games and were without it for the first time last week against Indianapolis, and Herbert threw 55 pass attempts for 420 yards, and they only got a total of 54 yards on the ground, and 31 of those were from Justin Herbert scrambling at quarterback. So only 23 yards combined for their running game. And Minnesota have a pretty good rush defense, particularly in the red zone. It's not that great down the field, but I think they should be able to stop it or at least limit it for the most part. So then it just comes down to how successful the Chargers are throwing the ball, which I think they'll be pretty good at throwing it. I think also Herbert may be under a little bit of pressure as well with the injuries on the offensive line and stuff. There are players questionable, so that's not a guaranteed factor, but is the potential. But if the Chargers can't get the run game going, which I don't think they can, then they're going to be forced to throw it. So they have a good receiving group. They'll be fine throwing the ball with Ladd McConkey, Keenan Allen. They had 29 of the 54 targets last week. Gadsden, who's in his first season, had a big game, 164 receiving yards, 68 the week prior. You also got Quentin Johnston in there as well. So both teams, really good receiving groups, but Minnesota have the edge in the ground game, which I think keeps them well and truly in the contest, and a big winning chance here on the road. Jefferson also had a really big game last time they played the Chargers. That's why I also think he'll be a main focus. So overall for this game, if the Minnesota run defense holds up, which I think it should, they're well in the contest. Either the plus 3.5 or buy it out to the plus 7.5, I think are really good options. Also, if the Minnesota run defense holds up, LA is going to be forced to throw the ball. Like last week, Herbert's passing yards should be high, regardless, I think, whether the Chargers are leading this game or if they're trailing, they're going to be forced to throw it even more again, and the numbers will go up further, assuming they're having success. So then also receiving yards for Ladd McConkey and Keenan Allen predominantly are the main two that I target. For Minnesota, they have fairly balanced offense. They should have good yards on the ground through Jordan Mason. So he only gets to about the 50 mark. So for most games, I think around that 40 line does look good at the alternate lines. And then Carson Wentz will obviously want to have a good game. He'll want to make some throws. He'll definitely put attempts out there. And also Minnesota being the underdog, if they are trailing, they'll lean on the pass game a little bit more. That's where Jefferson, Addison, those players come into play. I particularly would target Justin Jefferson as well. So that's my look at this game. I lean towards the underdog in the primetime game here to get week number 8 off and running. Thanks guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you want to see everything I'm betting in the NFL, the link to that is in the description. You can also follow all my sports bet just on one plan. So that gets you the NFL, of course, but also the NBA, soccer, and the NHL right now. NBA season began yesterday. We didn't bet the opening day. It was just the 2 games. First plays were today, where we went 3-1 and we were 1 point off making it a perfect 4-0 start. So sports are going really well. If you want to check that out, the link is in the description. Thanks, guys. I'll see you in the next video. I'll be previewing more games throughout the weekend for the rest of week 8. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. You have notifications on so you don't miss those, so you can profit on the NFL.